So, how does our breathing really work in the context of singing? One of the things I've used a lot to demonstrate this is a balloon. This is a really good teaching tool. So, when you think about your lungs filling up with oxygen, when you think about your lungs filling up with air and your diaphragm expanding out, what's going to happen is the walls of your diaphragm are going to expand out and they're going to be stretched. The way I think of that is a balloon. If you blow up a balloon, the walls of the balloon are stretched out. It's filled with air. That air wants to escape. So all you have to do is let go. And that air, let go of the nozzle of the balloon, and that air will rush out. The balloon's going to return to its state of equilibrium. It's still got a little bit of air in there, but it's not stretched out anymore. The same thing happens with our lungs and our diaphragm. We take a big giant gulp of air and then we release. We kind of return to that state of equilibrium. The next stage of that breathing, and what I like to think of as 4-cycle breathing, is we're going to take that inhalation, we're going to release, then we're going to squeeze in and up. Now, the balloon, if you squeeze the air out and then lock down the nozzle, you'll see the balloon it forms a vacuum. And what's going to happen? As long as you hold that closed, it's going to stay collapsed. But if you let it go, boom, the balloon's going to return to that state of equilibrium, and there's going to be a little bit of air in there again. Same thing happens when we're breathing. We squeeze out. All of that air, and it creates a vacuum. I'm going to show you that again. So that air rushes in. There's that state we squeeze out all our air, and we kind of hold our breath, and our diaphragm collapses. And our stomach just squishes in, and it's uncomfortable. You want to release that and allow the air back in. Just like with the balloon. The balloon is squeezed, all the air is squeezed out of the balloon. The air wants to get back in there. It requires force holding that shut in order to prevent that from happening. We release the nozzle, the balloon once again is loose, and it has a little bit of air in it. So we release, and the air automatically fills back into our lungs. But we're not done. It requires an effort, a stretching and expansion in order to fill up all the way. So what I think of as 4-cycle breathing, we start with our lungs and diaphragm completely expanded, then we release, then we squeeze in and up, then we release, then we stretch and expand, release, squeeze, release, stretch, release, squeeze, release, stretch. So the 4 steps: the stretch, release, squeeze, release. 4-cycle breathing. One of the other concepts that I think of when I'm thinking about my breathing is the concept of the J pattern of breathing. So I'm standing straight facing you, facing sideways. When I breathe, it's going to go down, and then I'm going to expand outward like a letter J. Then in and back up. So that's known as the J. One of the things I think about when inhaling air, you want to develop something called a snap. That's where when you take a breath in, really, really quickly, down and out in that pattern, just and that's really centered below our belly button. This is my belly button here. It's centered down around where your belt loop would normally be, the button of your pants. So the lower diaphragm muscles are really, really important for providing breath support and to really providing consistent airflow. Not all vocal styles are going to require you to use upper diaphragm strength and really constrict that airflow, really hold all of the air back. There are styles like opera, Broadway singing, where you're really going to want to do some of that belty singing, and you're going to want to have a little bit of extra airflow, more so than in some of the less belty styles of singing. So when you are singing in those methods, you really want to have good consistent airflow. That J pattern, that lower diaphragm support, really comes into play there. So really work on this. I'm gonna show you an exercise called the 4-2-1 that's going to help you with this, to develop that snap and that consistent lower diaphragm support. So move on to the 4-2-1 exercise, and I'll see you.